have a good time. Let's just have a good time. Clap your hands and sing, y'all. Tonight is the night.
Welcome, everybody. Good to see you. Happy Friday. Happy last Friday of the first semester. We made it. We made it this far, so that's amazing. Great to see you, one and all. Welcome to ToK, 10th period. We'll give everyone just a second or here. We'll almost have everybody, just missing a couple people that'll probably be joining us here in just a second. I'll talk us through our agenda, and we'll dive on in. My goal is to keep it relatively brief today. I know that you guys have final exams coming up next week, starting on Monday, and I know you have review guides to complete and tons to get organized and prepared for. So I'm going to spend a little time with you today, but we'll hopefully get you out of here so that you can start your weekend and take care of what it is you need to take care of. Okay, I think we have everybody now. So with your permission, I'm going to share my screen for just a quick second and talk about our agenda, and then we'll dive on in. All right, where is it? There we go. Okay, fantastic. All right, our agenda for today. First, I want to just sort of share some thoughts on one of us that that's having some difficulties right now, and I thought maybe we might be able to do something to help. And then I want to give you a chance to talk about the reading a little bit that you completed for Wednesday. We had so much interesting conversation. We didn't really get a chance to talk about what you guys discussed in your breakout rooms. So we'll just do that for a couple of minutes, get your thoughts on the poll and the reading and things like that. And then I'll show you the final exam guide, quote unquote, and then you guys will be good to go. Although, of course, I'll hang out as class ends for if anybody has questions or comments or wants to discuss things in more depth or length. I'll be happy to dive into it. Okay, so first of all, as many of you guys know, Christian has been struggling with his health, and he hasn't been with us over the last couple of class periods. He's been undergoing treatment for his condition. It is his birthday coming up in a couple of days, and so I thought maybe we could put together some kind of message to send to him digitally, just to let him know we're thinking about him and we're wishing him the best and we're wishing him a happy birthday. So if you find the time over the course of today and tomorrow, before Sunday, if you don't mind sending me either a short remind message that I could include in a birthday message to Christian, or a short video message. You can sing him happy birthday or just say happy birthday or whatever. I would really love just to put together a short little video and a short little card to send to him because he's kind of all off on his own right now, dealing with his health concerns. So I meant to run that by the CAT yesterday, the candidate advisory team, and I totally forgot to do that, guys. I apologize. But does anybody have any thoughts or suggestions on that idea? Okay, well, if you could do it, I'd really appreciate it. I think it'd mean the world to him, and so thank you. Sophie, I sent you. I'm trying to find you. Where are you, Sophie, on my screen? I found you, Sophie. Did you get a remind message from me today?
I don't know. I can check.
I'm sorry. One more time, Sophie. I missed you.
I'll check and look.
Okay, your name was brought up in a meeting yesterday about something amazing you might have done. Is this rumor true?
Yeah, it is.
Okay, so you raised some significant amount of money for who?
So every year North Central does their canned food drive, and obviously this year with COVID, we can't do it at the school, so we partnered with like Second Presbyterian, so they're working with us. So basically we raise money and then donate the cans to North Central families who need extra help during the holidays.
That's fantastic. And how much money did you raise?
So personally, I raised $3,000, and then I have a donor who's matching it with another $3,000.
Wow. All right, let's give a Zoom round of applause for Sophie. That is amazing stuff. So you were singled out in a meeting with all the administrators, principals, assistant principals, department chairs. And so I got to throw into the chat like, that's a DP kid, that's an IB kid, woohoo. So thanks, Sophie, for representing us all so well. And I know, again, it's been a whole student council effort, right?
Yeah, student council helped too, but I'm not on student council, so mine was like a separate fundraiser.
Okay, well, that's awesome. Well, hats off to student council as well for taking care of those folks in our community that are in need. That's amazing. Well done to you all. Okay, cool. So celebrations finished. We got Christian hopefully taken care of here with some messages you guys can send me tonight or tomorrow. So yeah, the reading. You know, why do you think so many Americans are adverse to politically correct speech? I mean, kind of across racial boundaries. People seem like they're not super excited about political correctness. Does anyone have a thought or theory on that? Yeah, Lee.
So I wasn't absolutely sure if this was an accurate statement, but I noticed that like people of color were usually less worried about political correctness. And I was wondering if maybe it was because they've been exposed to so much like racism that it's sort of normalized and therefore they think it's normal to not be politically correct. But I didn't know if that was an accurate statement.
Yeah, I mean, that's a great hypothesis, Lee. We don't know the answer to it, but I think that's a really interesting angle for you to take a look and approach the problem with. Do you think that hypothesis is valid? I mean, you're offering it as an idea. How much belief do you think?
I think it would be an accurate statement just because, I mean, acceptance on to people of color, like when they experience discrimination, they're sort of like, oh, get over it, you know. So it's really normalized to the point where some people are comfortable in that or with that. So yeah, I think it's.
Yeah. Okay, Lee. Thanks. I mean, I appreciate that perspective on the issue. Anybody else have a thought or a hypothesis about this idea that, you know, basically most of America hates the idea or is uncomfortable with the idea of political correctness, but yet you guys all in your survey, you seemed pretty concerned about it personally. Like you rated pretty high on the idea that you needed to be woke, and you rated pretty high on the idea that folks should actively try to engage in like being aware of how language is being used. Sophie and Tristan, what do you guys think?
I think we talked about this a little bit yesterday in like my breakout room, but we were talking about how it's so generational. So like it's been a really big focal point in our generation, and I think partly that's because of like social media, where we see like a lot of those issues appearing more. And so older generations, it's not everyone older necessarily doesn't like wants to hurt people's feelings, but a lot of people I feel like in older generations might not understand like the changes that have happened in like the past like 10 even like 5 years on what's more acceptable to say and what's not. And also like I feel like I've been told it in my family, but as people get older, a lot of people say like they lose their filter a little bit. So I definitely feel like part of it's just like sometimes older generations don't necessarily care as much about either hurting people's feelings or trying to learn, whether that how many people actually like do that or not. But I think some older generations have this view of like being politically correct is like soft and that we shouldn't have to worry about people's feelings, which I think is like what I know, at least like I've heard like my grandparents or like their friends say it. So I think people worry so much about once we make one thing politically correct, like everyone can't say anything anymore, instead of just like basic human decency of not saying things we know are offensive or hurtful.
Which logical fallacy is that, Sophie? You remember?
No.
Anybody real quick? Tristan, you want to dive in? Do you remember which logical fallacy?
Yeah, isn't it like slippery slope?
Very good. What did you want to comment on?
I was just gonna add that since most Americans, at least according to that data, was opposed to political correctness, I think it just that I think most like Americans value like free speech maybe even on like
Sorry, you froze.
consider like whether something is hurtful to others, like the consequences. They're just scared. Like this word political correctness sounds like almost like government censorship of ideas. So maybe they're just
Yeah.
don't know what it really means and just scared of what the word sounds like in their head. Maybe.
Yeah, I think that's a really good insight as well, Tristan. This idea that Americans value their freedom so much and they feel like any infringement upon that, sort of along the lines of the slippery slope argument, though, or fallacy rather, could a serious downfall in in their uh, in their ability to speak freely. Cool. What did you guys think about the policing of speech in the classroom? How active do you think teachers should be in like policing the kind of speech that's used in the classroom to make it politically correct? Or why should they be involved or why should they not be involved in trying to police that? Anybody have any thoughts about that? Yeah, Claire.
I mean, I think that like in a classroom, the purpose of discussion is supposed to be for learning. It's supposed to be for collaboration. So when the language you're using reaches the point where it's harming other people's ability to like be a part of a discussion, either because they feel hurt by it or because they just like feel like they can't speak without being like degraded by the class or something. I just think at that point it becomes an issue. Like free speech has to be regulated within the classroom. Like there's a reason why like some teachers in classes will say you can't just be using like profanity the entire class because it distracts from the point of like discussion and it's a distraction. And in that way, like using harmful language that's like not politically correct, it can sometimes definitely hurt people's ability to be included in the discussion. I think in general, you don't have to be 100% perfect with like your speech. You shouldn't be immediately shut down. But if you say something that's like not politically correct and somebody wants to correct you on that, like that should be also their right in a classroom discussion.
Okay, well said, Claire. So basically, to summarize, you feel like by policing the kind of language that's used in the classroom, you have a greater chance of making sure everyone in that conversation feels like they're invited to be a part of it?
Yeah.
Okay, so my question is, does that also, though, have a chilling effect? And some people might be reluctant to participate because they're going to be afraid they'll say the wrong thing.
That's why I think it's important to like, if somebody says the wrong thing, you shouldn't just immediately shut them down. You should say, this is why I think you shouldn't say that. But if you could rephrase your point or explain to me what you're saying.
Okay. Okay. Yeah, I think that's
Less reluctant.
yeah, I would love it if we had people that were that well reasoned. Thanks, Claire. That's awesome. Ritesh and Lee, what did you guys think about this issue?
Well, I'd just like to comment on the second thing, what you said to Claire afterwards, like when you said that people are either because they don't know what's how politically correct something is, they don't speak. That is like exactly me, because like I'm not very informed on many of the like the more politically correct stuff, and that's why like that's part of the reason when we talk about some of these issues, I'm like, should I say this? Should I not? And that's why I just like tend to just whatever.
Do you ever like reflect on yourself and say like, maybe I should learn more about this? Like maybe I should actually like educate myself so I don't feel this.
Oh, yeah, I think about that, but I'm just really lazy, so I just end up not doing it.
I doubt that you're really lazy, Ritesh, but
I'm really lazy.
okay. Well, I'll have to take you at your word, but I doubt you'd be here in this conversation if you were. Lee, what did you want to toss in?
Yeah, I was agreeing with Claire, like, with political correctness. I think it's important to police what people are saying in the classroom, especially if people are intentionally being insulting or derogatory. Like, I know a lot of kids are really disrespectful and they really just don't care, and that's really appropriate to police a situation or a conversation or somebody's language. But like she said, if somebody's unintentionally being politically incorrect, it's very important that instead of bashing them, we educate them. Like it sort of goes back to cancel culture. Instead of immediately canceling somebody for something that they said that maybe they didn't know was offensive, we should educate them. And if they continue to do it, that's when you sort of step in.
Lee, I love it. Can I ask you a question? I think hypothetically, right, the best way, it's almost implied in your comment, the best way for people to learn about these issues is to have conversation. But I would venture to guess that many, for example, of our schools, high schools around America, are pretty segregated. And in fact, even at a school like North Central High School that is quote unquote very diverse, we often have very segregated classrooms as well, where we have like AP classrooms that are majority white, and we have CP classrooms that are majority students of color. Should we be better about getting those students to interact more, to have those conversations, to learn from each other? How do we do that?
Yeah, that's something I've thought about before, and I've noticed that a lot of my AP classes are majority like a certain demographic, and I think it's very important that we sort of integrate AP classes with CP classes just so we could have like a perspective of what the other side sees, and so we could better understand both sides.
Okay, thank you, Lee. Cut out a little there at the end, but I think I know exactly what you're saying. Caden, you've been patient, and Mr. Munoz, we'll go to you next.
My statement was just kind of a testament to what Ritesh was saying, that if people don't know about it, it can be very demotivating, in that it's easier just to ignore like whatever political correctness might be and just be careful not to be on the wrong side of it instead of trying to learn about it and be more proactive in that sense. It's very, people aren't often motivated to learn more when they can just fly under the radar and not offend anyone.
Yeah, especially when you can sort of self-segregate yourself. You put yourself in an environment where everyone's kind of like you, so you can feel pretty safe, right? Yeah. So, yeah. So I mean, I would argue, hopefully you guys as participants in this program, right, value this diversity of opinion that can come from having difficult conversations. Mr. Munoz, I think final thought on this goes to you, and we'll move to the final exam. What did you want to say?
Just quickly, like, yeah, like Kaden and her test said, like when people don't know something, I think like this is what happens when someone doesn't know something. Usually it's either they look for someone says something and they like rely on that. They either like don't participate or don't talk. Can you guys hear me?
We can.
Oh, yes, good. Okay. Or like either they're afraid to like, talk and all. And I think it's also, it's not usual to hear a person just say, I don't know, right? Because they're afraid it might look like, you don't know, like, what? Like, if you don't know something, you shouldn't like make an answer or just conform to an opinion. You should like actually, like you're saying, like educate yourself. But like, it's okay to say, I don't know to something. You're not going to be less smart or less cool or more cool if you don't know something.
Yeah. And the value of asking questions, right? Like if you don't understand or you don't know how someone wants to be addressed, or what the proper way to handle a social situation that involves, in this particular case, language, right? To say, how is it that you'd like to be? I did this the other day. I was meeting with somebody, and I've heard them called by their first name, but I've also heard them called by like their professional doctor name, and they're one of my sort of superiors. And so before I started the Zoom, I said, hey, how would you like me to refer to you? Should I refer to you by your first name or your formal title? Okay, awesome. Okay, great. So, oh yeah, Charlotte, did you want to chime in before we move on? Yeah, I don't want to leave you behind.
Thank you. My take was generally just that political correctness seems to be like an extension of manners. Like, you shouldn't be racist because it's rude. It makes people feel bad. Say, your face looks weird, because that would make them feel bad about themselves. It doesn't accomplish anything, and it's just generally rude. It would be rude to say that someone it's just manners. It's weird that people will get up in arms about it because I guess people don't like to learn how to be nice sometimes.
Yeah, I mean, again, I think you're right about it being good manners, hypothetically, but I think it's also possible for reasonable people to disagree about what good manners means. And I also think that, people are well aware enough that, as we talked about, the language is really just the tip of the iceberg. It's the ideas that the language represents that people sometimes take issue with. People when they hear about like transgender people, right? And they hear about, oh, we have to think about pronouns. It's not really just the fact that I might have to use a different pronoun. It's perhaps uncomfortable to me as not like me, Andy Hudson, as a person, but like this hypothetical person that doesn't like political correctness. It might be challenging to them to think about, a non-binary, gender system, and so it's,
Well,
go ahead.
like, thing is about meeting a non-binary person, congratulations, you've met a non-binary person. That's pretty much like it. Like, you just say, hi, how was your day? And if you don't feel like being rude, you can use their right pronouns. And then you just go about your life exactly the same as it was before. Mind blowing.
Right on, Charlotte. Right on. All right. Very cool. Okay. All right. I am going to once again share my screen and we'll shift topics to the final exam. If you want to go into Canvas so you can see all of this yourself, please feel free to. If you want to go check it out later, you can do that as well. So as I alluded to on Wednesday, it's going to be a very non-traditional formatted final. And I have made some modifications to it, given the fact that we're remote and everything else that's been going on. So if you click on the review guide that's published, you'll see that I've streamlined things a little bit. Universities around the world are reinventing or just plain getting rid of final exams. There's a lot of kinds of reasons for this. Student stress, difficulty in eliminating testing acumen as a determinant of success, a shift in the kind of thinking skills appropriate these days, just to name a few. I have always questioned the philosophy behind final exams, especially in ToK. The issues we discussed do not lend themselves well to multiple choice answers, and the tight turnaround needed in grading finals will not allow for lengthy writing about ideas. So over the last few years, I've been slowly moving the course away from traditional final exam formats. We will use our final exam time to reflect and apply your ToK thinking skills, rather than to simply review and regurgitate. We will structure our time together during the final exam as follows. You guys are going to be broken up into 3 teams. In fact, you already are broken up into 3 teams, and I'll show you what team you're on here in just a minute. And you can see during each of these 45-minute slots, you and 8 other people are going to join me in a Zoom, and you're going to essentially do half of your final exam during that 45 minutes. So if you click up here at the top, there's a link to the review guide. It'll ask you if you want to make a copy. And you'll see that the final exam is really going to be in 2 parts. Okay. Here are our teams. So Jack through Zora, you guys are team 1. Ale through Isaac, you guys are team 2. And Adam through Sophie, you guys are team 3. Those were decided by a random number generator. I put a number next to each of your names on my roster, and then just used a random number generator to find the order in which you guys would be team 1, team 2, and team 3. All right, first part, when you're doing the part with me when you're online on the Zoom, you have a couple of options. Option number 1 is a 3 to 4 minute presentation that you'll do for us, for the 9 of us, on the past. And what I mean by the past is you'll be reflecting on first semester in ToK. And you can really reflect on that semester any way that you want. I've given you some questions that I think would be helpful for you to answer, but really you can kind of ask any kind of question that you want that helps you reflect on your ToK experience. So things like, what have I reconsidered as a result of my discussions in ToK? What discussions have opened my mind in ToK? What did I learn? Or sorry, who did I learn from this semester? obviously not me. This would be like other students. What have I shared in ToK that was of value? What would I have done differently if I could redo first semester in ToK? What am I most proud of to have accomplished in ToK? And so you can see the rubric is right here. We'll just take a look at that top band, the 7.6, the A band for this part. Students clearly explain their answers to at least 2 questions, and these explanations are specific, detailed, and insightful. It is clear that the student has reflected on the semester and chosen something meaningful to share that's authentic and true. So for example, right, for you to say the tests and quizzes were really hard and I didn't study enough for them and I got bad grades on all of our tests. Well, that doesn't seem very authentic and true because we didn't really have, I think we had one logical fallacy quiz, I think, was that it? So, again, be honest and sincere in your reflections. So that's one option. When you have your 3 or 4 minutes on the Zoom to share, you can talk about reflections on the past. IB loves reflection. Option number 2, if that doesn't seem like your gig, you can think about the present. And what I mean by that is you can think about something that you're doing in the real world. So in school, but also, athletic teams or performance groups you're in, religious community that you're a part of, a group or a team, I don't know, whatever. And think deeply about an activity that you're involved in and generate a ToK friendly philosophical question that comes from your participation in that group. So whether that's counterpoints or whether that's jazz band or whether that's, your physics IAs that you're working on and for your, with Miss Hairston for physics, whatever. I've got an example there of like one that I thought of. This was actually from last year, but I was spending a lot of time planning our family's trip to Ethiopia to see my children's birth families. And that had me thinking a lot about what makes a quote unquote family and how do you know where you belong? And so this led me to questions like, in what ways do we choose our identities and which ways are those choices made for us? So if I was choosing this option, I would talk for 3 or 4 minutes about how I think identities are formed and what makes a family and how it is that you belong to a group of people, how are social bonds made. So that's an example from my life that I would have chosen if I choose to do this one. So you'll pick one of those 2. You'll either do the visiting the past or the visiting the present. And then everyone will do this third part, which is visiting the future. And this is going to be an ethical exercise. So I am going to present you with some very likely future scenarios. For example, gene editing, or self-driving cars, right? Or the exploration of space by, tourists, right? With like things like SpaceX and stuff like that. And you'll consider the ethical implications of these future technologies and these future situations. And you'll write a little bit about the ethics that might be involved in that. And you can kind of see the directions there. Take a look back at your ethical paradigms if you want. Of course, it's going to be open note, so don't have to worry about memorizing stuff, but it'll be there for you. Okay. Now, what I would recommend being done, or what I'm going to try to steer you towards doing is if you're part of team 1 or team 2, or team 3, right? Regardless of which team you're in, while you're not doing the presentation part, you could write the essay, right? So that way you can be done, as soon as your presentation time is done, or if you're in the first group, you can then just wrap up your writing piece and, be done with your 10th period final as soon as you're finished. Does that make sense? Okay, I'm gonna stop my share and just like ask if people have questions. Yeah, Caden.
So I believe you mentioned 3 to 4 minutes. Is that incorporating both the required part and our option? Like those tied in together at least 3 to 4 minutes?
Yeah, so the required part is the option. So you are required to talk about one of those 2 topics, either reflecting on the past or talking about something you're doing presently. And then in terms of the writing, you can really use as much of the finals exam time as you want to do the writing. You'll be on the Zoom with us for 45 minutes or so. That leaves you, I don't know, an hour or 2 hours, I think, or something to write. So you can use as much or as little of that as you want to.
Oh, so sorry, I mistook
No.
That's the writing part, is it not?
It's okay, Caden. It's a little confusing. That's why I want to make sure everybody understands. Thanks for clarifying. Okay. I was going to originally have everybody on the Zoom for like the full hour and a half together while we did all the option 1 and option 2 stuff. And then I was like, well, why that doesn't make any sense. Why not let you guys be free for most of that time so you can not have to stare at a computer screen. So that's why I decided to do the 3 teams, just to give you more time where you didn't have to be just sitting listening to other people talk on the screen. Okay, any other great questions, comments, concerns, issues? So, yeah, Charlotte, go for it.
Will you be posting the stuff you just went over on Canvas so we don't forget?
Oh, is it not there already?
Oh, I was looking at what you were doing, so I didn't check actually.
Should be there already.
Sweet.
But if it isn't, let me know via remind or whatever, and I'll make sure that it is. Sometimes I have to unpublish and republish stuff weirdly. Okay, you guys are amazing. I love you very much. I hope you have a fantastic weekend and getting ready for all your final exams. We won't see each other until the final on Thursday. So if you have questions about the final exam, you're not exactly sure what's expected, you want some clarification, hit me up on Remind or email, and I'll be happy to help. And then if you could, yeah. All right. We'll see you guys soon. Take care, everybody.